Bongani, good afternoon to you, and thank you for coming in. So, where do I sign up for the 4-day work week?
I'm not optimistic in South Africa, in our jurisdiction, where it work, quite frankly. I mean, if you look at the studies where we take this call from, for instance, in New Zealand, it's a complete economic climate altogether. There, where they proposed this 4-day working week, the employers actually proposed that they be paid their full salaries. And of course, that's incentive enough for workers to actually say, no, we'll take this. But applied to South Africa, it's a different ballgame altogether.
How so?
I don't see captains of industry agreeing to such an arrangement, saying, you can work 4 days, I'll pay you full salary. You have 1 day where the company is not functioning. I think that's purely impractical in a climate such as ours. Secondly, if you were to tamper with our basic conditions of Employment Act, Thembekile, that would be problematic, because in corporate environment, it will never work in a South African context, because corporate workers, you evaluate them through KPIs. It's difficult to actually quantify productivity when you compare it with KPIs and performance assessments. But if you look at environments like your motor industries, your manufacturing companies, maybe there's an argument there that probably this could work, but there's an advocate of machinations as well as AI. How productive are workers when they have to press a button in operation?
But those who are in favor of the 4-day work week say that, in fact, when people only go to work 4 instead of 5 days, productivity seems to be on the rise. So why not try it out? And as far as the basic conditions of employment are concerned, surely that can also be altered to suit various industries. I mean, it may not have to change in the official law, but by company by company, surely that can be altered.
Well, that could be without tampering with the basic conditions, certainly. However, I don't feel that from, as I said earlier, captains of industry, there's incentive enough. And I don't think we've got bargaining power like New Zealand. Amazon tried it, where they did it slightly differently. They decreased the salaries by 25%. The results were slightly different from New Zealand, where they were incentivized fully. And take it here, where the employer would say to you, look, probably I can consider this at a rate of 50%. Then that's a problem for the worker. That's not an incentive enough. And then what are these workers going to do the next day?
The rest.
No,
every worker who's watching this.
Not quite. I beg to differ, because what you'll get is, one, they have to supplement the income. I'm looking at a perspective where the employer is saying not 100% salary. And then they have to supplement. You have a rise of moonlighting. You still have a problem with productivity. So in a context where there's high levels of unemployment, it could be seriously problematic. Maybe collective bargaining. In your bargaining councils with all the relevant stakeholders, you could look at that. But again, they are overworked. This doesn't work, as far as I'm concerned, to employees that are overworked.
But Bongani, let me come in here. There are those who say, even in the 5 days that the average person spends at work, not all 8 hours every day are spent being productive. So why not have a 4-day week where, I think, in one of the countries, people only do 6 hours a day. So you have that situation where the days are shorter, it's a shorter week, but the time is spent doing actual work versus saying to Thembekile, come in here Monday to Friday from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, and I'm not even as productive as I should be. So what is the issue?
As a labor lawyer, I've never encountered such a situation where people are saying, look, I have 8 hours of work, I'm doing nothing. What you have
Not quite doing nothing, but not filling all 8 hours of work.
Even that is an issue that I haven't encountered. What you have, in actual fact, from a punitive perspective, is employees who are idling and loafing. So you find that 2 hours, 3 hours is actually spent on social networks, not being productive. Not that there isn't work there. There is work, but people are just not giving in the output. So I think, for me, it's a laissez-faire approach for now. If we're to say a blanket change, I agree with probably workplace to workplace, sector to sector, that could be tried out, but I'm not too optimistic that the result could be as overwhelming as the case in New Zealand. Already 45 hours compared to other legislation, quite liberal for employees to work. If you look at India, for instance, how many working hours a day? The compressed working week is actually 12 hours, but when you look at it totally to a week, it amounts to even 45 hours that's kept with no 10 hours overall overtime work. So it's very, very accommodative, arguably, from the employee's point of view, our jurisdiction, that is.
I want to go back to one of your earlier arguments. You spoke about incentives for the employers. What would persuade them, at least in drawing up some sort of legal framework around this, to at least believe that a shorter work week would work out for productivity and indeed the bottom line?
The buy-in of the government, Department of Labour, relevant stakeholders, funding in the money there to incentivize, just like you have with your BE incentives, the same. Employers could look that up, but with the resources being dried up, with the number of retrenchments already this year, we're bleeding retrenchments. Again, I'm sorry to be a prophet of doom as far as this issue is concerned. I'm not too persuaded the government can say, we're going to fund in this so that people are actually working. What you're going to have actually is an influx of foreign employees who are taking advantage of saying, listen, we can work, never mind the 45 hours. We can put in 70-hour shift a day, and then you're going to move to, an exodus in the country and an immigration issue, as well as non-legislation and framework being established on employees being registered in terms of our UIF and so forth.
Very quickly, as we wrap up, how many hours and days do you work a week?
I'm a director, so I don't have that. I'm working overnight, but my staff, I can
What he means by director is he works 3 days a week and expects the rest of the staff to show up 5 days a week and work 8 hours a day.
I hope they're not watching.
Bongani Khanyile, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.